a Two Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room. As you guys know, the show is brought to you by Operation Encore. They are a 501c nonprofit helping veterans become rock stars. So if you can, make sure you go over to operationencore.org, hit that little donate button, or at least, check out their page and give them some love because they're doing amazing things. Hey, today, man, we have got an amazing guest that is going to talk about a topic that, not too many people are talking about. And it's kind of surprising. It is actually a topic I have seen and kind of thought about, but I never really even thought about talking about it. So let's get down to it, man. Today, we've got John Davis. John's bio, John's the most tattooed person with a Harvard degree. And I think that is an awesome fact. I think more Harvard people should try to surpass that. That should be a very, very high goal of people going to Harvard. So a combat veteran, military author, and traveler, John is traveling the world to let veterans know how they can live healthier and happier outside the United States. John's spoken to Congress as a legislative fellow and is the author of Combat to College, The Freedom Challenge, and 365 Days of Veteran Affirmations. So let's bring on John Davis. Hey, what's going on?
Donald.
How
I'm
you
doing great.
Oh, awesome.
I'm down here in the Dominican Republic and got my first drink of the night.
There you go, man. There you go. So I think we got to get the elephant out of the room, man. How many tattoos do you have to have the most tattoos for a Harvard degree?
I was at Harvard Field working out when I was at school there, and I had my shirt off and pretty much my whole body's covered in tattoos. So all these professors stopped me and they're like, "Are you a student here?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "You are the most tattooed person we've ever seen come through here," and that is kind of what led to me those type of experiences writing my first book, Combat to College, which is how veterans can be successful in the classroom, because we are non-traditional students. I mean, I started college as a 30-year-old college freshman, with PTSD, with tattoos, and in a room with a bunch of 19-year-olds. And veterans oftentimes struggle with our educations because that's the first place we go. A lot of us, first stop after military service is college, and how well we do there really does have a big impact on our lives. So I wanted to first help student veterans. So I wrote my book for that, because that first year when you got in the military is really critically important. And student veterans face a lot of unique challenges. I mean, you're older, you tend to be more likely to have a family, you need a job. Over 50% of student veterans have some kind of service-connected disability. So all of these veterans, there isn't a single one that doesn't struggle adjusting to college.
Oh yeah, I bet. And I can't wait to get into it. But one of the things I want to talk about is you couldn't have picked a harder school for a veteran to adjust to. I guarantee it. But before we go there, though, give everybody a little bit of background. Tell them about what brought you to the military and where you grew up at.
I grew up in Iowa. I served in the 101st. You can see my cool little B chart I got here done. I did 2 deployments with the 101st, and then I did a stint recruiting before I got out of the military. So for me, I joined the military because I failed out of community college. And at the time, I was trying to be an MMA fighter, actually. So I was doing some cage fighting. And then one time, I was doing some fights at a strip club. And after I ended up losing the fight. And afterwards, I'm in the locker room changing. There's strippers around. The promoter comes up. He pays me $100. It gives me 2 drink tickets. And I got a big black eye. And when the stripper is like, "I don't think this is for you," and that was when I was like, and I was too immature I was going to community college, but, I was more interested in drinking and girls than going to class. So eventually that kind of drove me into where a lot of young men go when they need guidance, Uncle Sam, and joined the military and then straight off to Afghanistan pretty much. And, that really shaped my life. The military kind of leaves its mark on everyone. So I really enjoyed the Army. I did not very much enjoy recruiting, as a lot of former recruiters will tell you. It's difficult to transition from, combat arms infantry straight into recruiting. I remember I pulled up and, my station commanders never deployed. My first sergeants never deployed. My sergeant majors never deployed. And I'm there as like a young staff sergeant. Like, this is some bullshit. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't want to talk to these high school kids. So I got out of the military, ended up going to school because I thought initially I wanted to be a teacher. And I did my student teaching in seventh grade or in seventh graders. And I realized there's no way in hell I can teach these kids. I mean, kids will curse you out in today's world. And it's crazy the things children will say to you, and parents too. It's a crazy environment. And then, so I took a job teaching in Thailand, which kind of led me overseas. And I taught English in Thailand, and there the children are incredibly respectful. I mean, they're bowing to you constantly, which is kind of a cool feeling, just to be bowed to 45 times a day. And they also do all their homework, very respectful. And that kind of
and they don't get grounded over there. They get their ass beat.
And what's cool is, I don't know about cool, but they have the Thai teachers will hit kids in the classroom if not paying attention. So I wouldn't hit the kids, but they come up and smack them with the ruler real hard if they weren't paying attention. And the first time you see that as an American, you're like, oh my God. But that's what used to happen in American schools. When my grandparents were growing up, that's not a rare thing. And that still occurs in a lot of the world. So maybe if they beat some of these seventh graders that I taught, then they wouldn't be such insufferable little shits sometimes.
Oh, I guess.
So that led me into international education, which took me to Harvard. And I got my master's degree from Harvard in international education. And then started pursuing writing after I kind of got to Harvard and wrote my book, Combat to College.
So to talk about a few things, we can't just skip over that there is really a place that has strippers and MMA cages in the same place. All right. Can you imagine the money that would make outside? I'm just saying.
That's where they should have had it instead of strip clubs in Iowa. MMA is real big out there because there's not much to do. We don't have any professional sports. So people like to drink and they like to fight. And that's probably why a lot of people from Iowa join the military too, because there's drinking and fighting there.
So, hey, have you ever wanted to be a part of this show? You now have the opportunity to be a part of the Two Drunk Dudes in a Gunroom show. We have worked with a nonprofit that is starting called Heroes Voices Media Foundation. We are trying to help this foundation get built. You can be a part of it by sponsoring our show. Go to twodrunkdudesinagunroom.com, sponsor the show, and you will be a part of an amazing organization that will be helping veterans. Thank you. Now let's get back to the show. We actually have quite a bit in common. So I was born in Des Moines.
Oh, nice.
And you're probably very familiar with a unit that I did 50% of my career in. I was in the 160th for about 10 years. So,
absolutely.
Yep. So they were based there out of Campbell. I'm sure you did some time there at Campbell with the 101st. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I was there for 6 years. I really enjoyed Fort Campbell. I didn't attend not too much of strip clubs off base. I wouldn't recommend anyone ever go to those. But Nashville's a quick trip, so it's a good time over there. And then now my kind of mission in life that I've kind of transitioned into, a lot of which has been fun, but it's helping veterans move abroad and encouraging veterans to open their eyes to the information and resources. And just the reality is sometimes we can live a lot healthier and happier outside the United States. So I live in the Dominican Republic right now, where I'm at. My rent is $500 a month. When I lived in Boston, my rent was $2,500 a month for a way more terrible place. And here I can walk to the beach. There's actually over 20,000 American veterans that live here in the Dominican Republic. Wow. We have veteran centers where we can get our health care. So you can go to a veteran center and they can do all your service-connected healthcare, and they'll build a VA for it through the foreign medical program. A lot of veterans just don't understand how healthcare works abroad. And now that there is all these clinics that will treat veterans, and then they build the VA. So you can get your TRICARE abroad. You can use your GI Bill abroad. You can get your VA disability benefits abroad. And so kind of my mission is opening veterans' eyes to that idea, because I came down here on a vacation and kind of was just like, I'm just going to stay, because why would I go back to Boston? If you're a veteran, I retired from the military and I have my military benefits and I work on my computer. So there's not really a reason for me to pay $2,500 a month in Boston or live in the cornfields in Iowa when I can live here in Dominican Republic in the sunshine and kind of get a fresh start, because I think a lot of veterans are looking for that when they get out of the military, kind of wiping the slate clean, a fresh start, and also adventure. Like you mentioned, being stationed in Germany and Korea, we're so uniquely suited to live abroad because we're already more worldly international citizens. Any military career is going to take you a bunch of different places. So you're used to kind of assimilating in different places. And we also know how to take care of ourselves. Last week I was in Colombia doing an article on my website for veterans there. And a lot of people think of, Colombia as being dangerous, but to me, it's like American cities are dangerous. I grew up in a small town in Iowa, so I'm way more comfortable living here in the Dominican Republic than I would be living in like New York City or Philadelphia, Chicago, on these big American cities. And America has really transitioned from, kind of a communal environment into really being individualistic. And I think that's one of the reasons why veterans struggle when we got out of the military, because we're used to that community. We're used to that camaraderie. And then we kind of come into a society that feels kind of artificially divided. There's political division. There's kind of, everyone seems to be very stressed in the States. And I don't think that makes it harder for veterans to heal, especially if you're dealing with PTSD or you have your issues. It's a lot harder to heal in a toxic environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sad, but it's always been that way for many years, at least in my lifetime. You have to have a crisis, an emergency to get that camaraderie, unless you're in a very, very small town where literally everybody does know everybody. It's one school, elementary and middle school is the same school or something. But for the most part, if it's over 15,000, 10,000 people, you don't even know your neighbors,
No. And those types of things are what's, making more and more veterans move abroad. I think the reasons why veterans leave the United States is, sometimes a little depressing when you think about the rising cost of living, when you think about the political division, when you think about crime, homelessness and all these issues that are kind of everywhere in America. But the reasons why veterans move abroad are really kind of inspiring, because you move abroad for a higher quality life at a lower cost. When you're not stressed about maybe bills or paying the rent, you can really find yourself in a more healing mindset, because financial health is mental health. And for me, like living down here where, food is cheaper, my rent is cheaper. I'm not stressed about the bills like I am in America, or trying to win the rat race like a lot of people work to do. I'm able to kind of work on myself. And that's something that sometimes escaping the United States can help you do, because you have to separate yourself from that, toxic environment in order to find some growth.
Yep. I'll be honest, since I closed my company, I've started fixing myself. There's no way while I owned my trucking company, I was fooling myself to ever think that I was going to get my mental health back. I was just going deeper and deeper down that hole, because there's no time to think about yourself. You're always trying to maneuver your business, fix your business. There's always another crisis, whether it's the trucks broke down, COVID's coming, something, and so never put yourself first. And
you can't put yourself first when you're in the military either. You're always going to come second or third or 100th or whatever when you're in the military. So that's why it's been a really cool journey to talk to veterans about moving abroad. So now on my website, I'm doing articles. I have information for veterans who want to relocate to Mexico, to Costa Rica, to Dominican Republic. Next month, I'm going to Thailand. A lot of people don't know there's like 4 VFWs in Thailand and like 3 American Legions, because they have all these veterans there. A lot of veterans started going abroad after Vietnam, because then those veterans came home, obviously mistreated by their nation, and we're like, okay, screw this. I'm going to go back to Thailand or the Philippines and live there. There's a full Veterans Administration hospital in the Philippines where you can do all of your healthcare over there. And here in Dominican Republic, you can do everything you can do through the VA, through the foreign medical program here in Dominican Republic. You can get your medications. I go to group therapy every week with veterans. You can get massages paid for by the VA. So I go to like water therapy every week. And I always tell people, listen, I get a weekly massage and I do aqua therapy, and my back feels better than it ever has since I got out of the military. A lot of veterans are really struggling with back problems. You can't do a career really in the military and get out. It's your back is going to be about 15 years older than you are. And when I was struggling with those things, the VA, of course, prescribes muscle relaxers, painkillers. But for me, I actually found myself getting off my medication, sleeping better, not needing the anxiety drugs when I escaped the kind of constant stress and anxiety that's everywhere in the United States. And here in the Dominican Republic, I could swim in the ocean every single day, and those types of things, that kind of connecting with nature, being around other veterans here who are also on their own, healing journeys, has been really therapeutic. Next year here, we are going to set up veterans retreats where we're going to bring veterans down here to the Dominican Republic and put them through like a week of beach therapy, meditation, yoga, like on all those holistic things, going to connect with nature and show veterans how disconnecting from the United States might be exactly what you need. Because sometimes for your life to improve, your environment has to improve.
I never really thought about that, but another way of saying that is there. It's no secret that there is a lot of things out there that they don't allow in the United States that has already been proven to help PTSD. And I'm not just talking about just veterans, sexual assaults, child abuse, all sorts of traumas, whether it be MDMA, whether it be, mushrooms, whichever, the point being is, it's going to be years before that gets watered down to the point that the veteran that lives on 50,000 a year is going to be able to afford it, even after it's legalized. I mean, MDMA, there was talking 2024 it's supposed to be legalized, but who's going to be able to afford the treatments when it first comes out? It's not going to be the veterans.
No, and you have to be the director of your own therapy and find out what works for you. A lot of veterans kind of leave their therapy in the hands of the VA. And it's like, hey, if the government broke you, maybe the fix is somewhere else. Maybe you have to look within, and maybe you do have to change your environment. For me, that was kind of what opened my eyes when I came here, initially on a vacation. I felt so much better. I mean, it was literally like, I know everyone feels better on vacation, but for me, it was, I was living in Boston. It was the beginning of the pandemic. And it was just like people are yelling at each other. Bars were closed down. Gyms were closed down. I was like, if the bar and gym is closed down, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. My only hobbies are drinking and working out, really. So when I came down here, it was almost like there was no pandemic. Like people were not that concerned about it, kind of going about your day-to-day lives. So that kind of opened my eyes up to an entirely new world. And now I want to talk to veterans about, hey, maybe living abroad is for you. And like you mentioned, if you're that veteran, okay, you're making 50 grand a year, you can live like a king in the Dominican Republic, or you can be poor in the United States. And for me, I'd rather, live this life at a higher quality life at a lower cost of living, because that's something that's entirely changed my mindset on life. And I want to share that, as well as resources for other veterans, like how to use your dry bill out of the country. A lot of veterans are entirely unaware that you can use your dry bill outside of the country or go to school. Last month, I was in Mexico and I interviewed a veteran there, and he's, 100% from the VA and using his dry bill to go to school in Mexico and learn Spanish. And he is just night and day a different person, like 6 months to another. Like you look at him when he was in the States, he was like overweight, depressed. He moved to Mexico. Now he's like thinner, happier, tanner, got a beautiful Mexican girlfriend now. So he's living the dream. So, spreading that message to other veterans has really been a cool thing. It's been cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I could kind of see it on the other side too. There's some, the walls, I guess, not so much see it on the other side, but I see the walls that could stop people, the one, how do I get to keep my retirement check, taxes, those questions, how do I get got to keep my visa, or how do I
Mhm.
get my citizenship, those types of questions. And then you got the the guys that believe, well, you can't be a patriot unless you're living in America, and you got to get over those kind of stereotypes. You can't think in that aspect, because look, the reality is the government didn't think that way about where they put you.
Right.
you know
And the government hasn't always done right by American veterans, so we have to help ourselves
Yep.
and we have to help one another.
Yep.
I have seen some of those comments where people are like, "Oh, how could you move to fight for America for 10 years and then move to another country?" And it's like, well, one thing that's cool about veterans is we always leave stuff better than we found it. We volunteer more than civilians. We work hard. So when I'm abroad, I find that people really like American veterans because we tend to be more respectful. We tend to be more responsible. So a lot of that stuff is kind of funny. Another thing I get sometimes is the big problem that veterans have with moving abroad is they can't take their guns. So that's usually what I hear is veterans like very passionate about gun rights and stuff, which I get it. I was in infantry. I'm an Army guy. Like, you don't got to talk to me about guns. I love guns too. And so, of course, there are trade-offs, and moving abroad is not for everyone. I don't think that every veteran should leave the United States of America, because then what the hell would happen to America? But I am telling veterans, hey, if you're struggling, and you have your VA benefits, I mean, God forbid, before you kill yourself, before anything like that, come here to the Dominican Republic. I'll put you in a beach chair, give you a cold beer, introduce you to some girls. Before you know it, I think your mental health is going to be back on track. So that's the kind of message where, I want to spread to veterans. But yeah, the gun thing, that is the big thing. A lot of veterans are, listen, I'm not going if I can't take my guns. And it's like, well, the reality is nowhere is like America when it comes to gun rights.
You also look at the amount of homeless veterans out there too. How many people get to keep their guns when you're homeless? At some point you lose them.
Yeah. And but I understand, like I said, it's a trade-off. Like, I have always owned guns. When I moved abroad, there are processes to own guns, but it's so complicated, and it's not like you can own the kind of guns that I want to own anyway here. So like in Mexico, you can own like a real small caliber gun. You can't own anything that's going to be that powerful. And you also have to one of the things that's kind of good about gun rights abroad, like here in Dominican Republic, is you have to take like a shooting. You have to qualify on it before they'll let you legally own a gun. So you have to prove that you can operate it before, taking it to your home. So some of those things kind of I think are good, because there are a lot of gun owners in America that have no idea how to shoot or what they're doing with their gun. And that can lead to issues.
Yep. Just out of curiosity, has anybody told the cartel that you have to own a small caliber?
Yeah, you know what? I think somebody should tell them that legally they're not allowed to do that. Just like someone should talk to the American criminals, like, hey, did you know that this is illegal to murder each other?
Yeah.
But that's it's the truth. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not like mass shootings abroad and stuff like that, but there's no such thing as like a school shooting here in the Dominican Republic. Like, things like that don't really happen. So a lot of people with kids are leaving the United States. Maybe they disagree with the politics of the educational system. Maybe they just want to raise their kids in a different environment. As someone, I taught at an international school in Thailand. I know that international schools are a lot of times far higher quality than the American public educational system.
Yeah, I completely agree with that too. And I don't understand why we can all sit here and agree. Is there a drug problem in the United States? Yes. Is there a crime problem in the United States? Yes. We can all agree on that too. Is there a mental health problem in the United States? No. How can you have this massive drug problem, this massive crime problem, and kids shooting up schools, and then say there's not a mental health problem in the United States? There is.
And that's why we're raising a generation now that is not joining the military. That's one of the reasons why we have kids who, they're not going to give up their rights to take on responsibilities. They're not going to give up their privileges in favor of duty. That's not really how we're raising kids in America. And that's one of the reasons why the military is in such a recruiting crisis. And that's something that if we don't address it, there might not be a next generation of veterans to take on the mantle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm glad I'm retired.
Yeah, it's a good feeling to be on the other side. I mean, I think, of course, as like veterans, one of the things we do is sit around and talk about the military and our military experiences because we miss it. And we do tend to romanticize it a little bit. I look back at my cool moments in Afghanistan and helicopters or gunfights, but there were a lot of shitty times too as a private, like mopping floors, getting yelled at, all that stuff. And sometimes, I think that the upper echelons of the military leadership have failed like the lower enlisted soldiers. I mean, I think that there's such a divide between the officer class in the military and the enlisted. A lot of people don't know one of the reasons why I wrote my book is because so you have two classes of people in the military. Everybody kind of knows this, but like civilians don't really understand. You have your officers and enlisted. Enlisted people kill themselves at way higher rates. Enlisted people are homeless at way higher rates. Enlisted people are addicted at way higher rates. So you look at all that stuff, enlisted people even like get divorced more, all those things. Officers transition so much better out of the military. And one reason is because they have a college degree. Whereas if you're enlisted, you're going back to school with maybe, we'll call it a certain amount of baggage to where, you're like me, you're a 30-year-old college freshman with PTSD trying to figure it out. You're going to have kids. So that's something that I think that the military branches should think about a little bit more is how powerful a college education is because people with college degrees do kill themselves less. They make more money. And like I said, financial health is mental health. People with college degrees just kind of do better in life in basically every statistical category. That doesn't mean going to schools for everyone, but the GI Bill is so flexible nowadays to where you can use your GI Bill for pretty much everything. A lot of veterans don't know they can use your GI Bill for like apprenticeships, for police academies, for flight training, for scuba school, for all these different vocational programs. So getting information about the GI Bill out there is very important. Like, hey, go to school online. A lot of veterans don't know how the GI Bill works abroad. So in 2023, the BH is a flat rate and it's $1,800. I think it's like $1,823 or something like that. So if you're going to school in the Philippines or Mexico or Germany or Korea, if you attend one class in person, you get a flat rate of $1,800 a month for your basic allowance for housing. So getting that kind of information for veterans out there, for me, has been really rewarding just because a lot of veterans will contact me and be like, wow, I never thought about living abroad. Or I was always concerned about living abroad because I thought I'd lose my military retirement or all those things. But you're not in the military anymore. They can't tell you where to live. You can live wherever the hell you want. You're free, and so it's been cool to talk to veterans and see how veterans living abroad are not only surviving, they're thriving. Like the veterans I meet abroad are all having a hell of a good time. And the veterans in America are depressed, overweight, struggling, facing all those crises like we talked about. So when I kind of saw that, I was like, okay, we got to get this message out to more veterans that, once you leave the military, it's maybe, maybe you should think about moving abroad.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see it because, the more we're talking, the more I keep thinking, and I can't think of anybody that I talked to overseas that was, and even in Germany, that was contractors over there, in Korea, and my uncle was one of those people. So when I was stationed in Korea, my uncle was working on base for the University of Maryland, handing out books at Camp Humphreys, So I would go down there on the weekends and hang out with him. And of course, he hung out with a bunch of other retired Air Force guys. And I didn't know anybody I never heard anybody that complained that they had to live in Korea.
No.
Hey, let me tell you guys about an amazing organization that is being built right now. It is called Heroes Voices Media Foundation. And it is an organization that is using media to help veterans express themselves and tell their stories using media, as in podcasting, like the Two Drunk Dudes in a Gunroom show. It is also using music, like Gunroom Radio. And it is also using books like What is Coming Soon with Warrior Words. So if you would like to help, go check out Heroes Voice Media Foundation.org. You can find it at our Facebook page, and you can also find it in the description of this episode. So let's get back to the show. You know,
Well, it's cool. You get to create your own life. Like I said, it's a fresh start. It's an adventure. And for veterans, we are adventurous people, or we wouldn't have joined the military to begin with. So living the kind of life you can live abroad is just something you can't do in America. Like I have a maid that comes to my apartment, every couple days to clean. I've never had a maid before, but it feels cool, because I can afford those types of things here. Whereas in the States, you just can't. I have a swimming pool, whereas I never had a swimming pool in the United States. So kind of opening the door for veterans to move abroad is I think a worthy couple years of my life. So I'm going to be traveling around the next 2 years, having a good time and doing articles. So like I mentioned, next month I'll be in Thailand.
Bro, I think that is awesome. I have not heard of anybody else that is advocating for this. So I think that is amazing, because you are right. Sometimes you just got to put yourself in a different environment to change everything around you, and I never thought about it that way, but you are absolutely right.
Well, you can't ignore the crisis of American veterans right now. I mean, we are in such, the conversations around the military community are honestly kind of depressing, to where nobody wants to join. Everybody's mad at military leadership. Everyone in the military is upset about this or that. A bunch of people got kicked out for not taking a COVID vaccine. And then, then they want those people back. And we look at the withdrawal from Afghanistan, all those things. And as someone who spent, the prime of my life, in Afghanistan, it's disheartening to see those types of things. And sometimes disconnecting from that is just self-preservation, to where if I'm in America and I have to see everyone screaming at each other, waving signs at each other, that's not really the kind of person I am. I like family, God, those community, those things are very important to me. And they're very important to people who live here in the Dominican Republic, whereas America has gotten more and more secular, the Latino world's not necessarily like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. You are absolutely right. The veteran community, has every right to be upset with the government. If you look back in these last 20 years, they've had 20 years for somebody to say, we need to start planning for the mental health problems that we got coming. Instead, they did nothing, and now they're going to have 2 different generations worth of mental health problems, and we're different. You got the older guys like me that was only there for the first half, and then we retired, and then you got the guys that came in and was there for the whole war, that are a younger generation than me, that think differently, they respond differently, they require different approaches to things, and I don't think they were ready for either one of us.
No.
So now it's the mom and pops, it's people like you and some of these other 501(c)s that are out there that are reaching people, and we're picking up the all these veterans that are falling through these big cracks, that are needing help, because they don't know where to go, and so many of them walk to the VA and they say, well, nobody here's to help me, and they think that's the end of it. There's nobody left, and it's frustrating.
When I first went to the VA for mental health, I was struggling. One of my close friends I was in Afghanistan with killed themselves, and I was drinking a lot. And I called for an appointment with a mental health counselor, and my wait time was 24 days to see mental health. So here, I tell people here in the Dominican Republic, wait times do not exist when it comes to treating veterans, because they get paid by every veteran they treat. If I call the veteran clinic, they will send a car to pick me up and go, and I'll talk to a therapist if I'm struggling. And we have weekly group therapy sessions where we hang out, have a couple of beers, talk with a psychologist, and those types of things are so much better than the medication that's pushed by the VA and fluorescent lights and all that stuff. And, so it's so wonderful to see veterans come here to the Dominican Republic and literally just live with more joy. Just, it's like you're a kid again. You kind of come, swim in the ocean, you eat fresh food. You can drink at 11 a.m. here and nobody looks twice at you. No big deal, as opposed to in the States. So it's a more fun, laid back culture than America, where stress is kind of overtaken the United States.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think some of it is also the fact that you've now removed yourself out of the mainstream media that wants to project all this shit on you? Because now you don't see it no more. Because now thinking about this, you think about when you were deployed, all you got to know was AFN. What AFN told you, that's all you knew. And when you kind of got back, you were like trying to talk to people, but you were like really outdated because
right.
You knew what AFN told you, and that was fucking a year ago for them,
And people talk about, being informed and up to date with politics and stuff. I'm not really sure how necessary that is, because I'll tell you, it's terrible. So, like if I open the newspaper, it's all bad news. If I turn on, it doesn't matter if I look at Fox or MSNBC, I can already tell you it's going to be bad news. And for veterans who are already struggling, who are already maybe in a more vulnerable spot when it comes to mental health, seeing that kind of division and experiencing it can just lead to more trauma. It can make it harder to heal. And then you get so wrapped up into political division in America that it makes you kind of forget yourself. In the military, we live with such communal purpose, and we really came together. I mean, your basic training class is kids from all over the United States. I mean, you really, get to meet all these different people. And then you get out of the military and you find yourself in this fragmented and individualistic society where everyone wants you to like take sides on things. Everyone has opinions about things, and not seeing that every day is honestly healing. I mean, the veterans here, we don't talk about politics. We talk about drinking and girls and traveling and those types of things that we don't argue about politics at all.
Yeah. I don't, I think for the most part, I think most veterans don't, no. I really don't, because, and I used to say this is a bad thing, but I don't know that it really is a bad thing anymore. If you really think back about it, you think about all the years that you were in, when it came time for the voting period, the veterans aren't a huge voting party. We really aren't.
We didn't talk about who we're voting for or if we're voted. I didn't vote when I was in Afghanistan. I didn't even know how to do it, so I think the fact that we're so expected to be passionate about political stuff, I'm passionate about veteran issues. That's what I care about, is helping my fellow veterans. And that's kind of the only thing that matters to me. And I can't change the world, but what I can do is help veterans with moving abroad and kind of be like, hey, here's all free stuff. Like, it's just, here's information on my website and social media. So that's kind of what led to me blowing up, is I posted videos about living in Dominican Republic. I said, here's why I live in Dominican Republic. My rent's $500 a month. I can swim in the ocean every day. There's beautiful people here. Like I can drink at 11 a.m. Then there's so many other veterans that live here. And, people's responses to that have been really like fun to see. They're like, what? I can move to the Dominican Republic? And then now, because I've been doing this for like, probably 2 years, about like making videos about living in Dominican Republic on Instagram and stuff. I meet veterans, they'll hit me up, they'll come here and tell me, you're the reason why I moved here, because I saw these Instagram videos of you on the beach explaining how to use your military benefits here, explaining how to use your dry bill here, explaining how you can get healthcare here, explaining school options and things like that. Because a lot of people just don't think about that they can move abroad. If your situation is toxic, sometimes you have to leave that situation, whether it's that relationship, that job, that city in America, whatever it is. If it's a toxic place, you can't heal there. And if you're struggling with PTSD, come to the Dominican Republic. There's, like I mentioned, there's a beach chair and a cold beer with your name on it. And maybe that's where you'll find growth and call home.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I agree, brother. So let me ask you this: where is the best place for people to reach out to you if they want to learn a little bit more, or if they got questions.
So I post videos on both Instagram and TikTok now on living abroad. So like I did a video last week when I was in Colombia about living in Colombia. And then I also, on my website, I put a more detailed article about like cost of living, about visa stuff, about specific healthcare, about TRICARE abroad, and all those types of things. So my website is johnhdaviswriter.com. And there I have my blog, my books. My most recent book is 365 Days of Veteran Affirmations. So this is 365 affirmations written with military culture, military creeds, military language, military values, because we do have a specific and unique culture with us. And we have to kind of respect that when it comes to our healing. So that's why I post that stuff. Next month, I'll be doing an article on Thailand, on living in Thailand. And I'm going to a VFW meeting there, and I'm going to meet the VFW there. I'm going to drink a bunch of Thai beer and hang out there on the beach too. And then talk about how veterans can move to Thailand, if they want, and resources and information to them.
Now, when you get over there, if you walk into any bars or any strip joints and you don't see any fight cages or any Muay Thai rings, you should say, I got an idea.
Yeah,
if you put girls around these rings stripping around this cage and have the guests come up here and fight, make big money, man.
That's how you should make money. I thought you were going to mention the lady boys, but that too.
No, in today's world, that probably is an everyday thing anymore. So,
Hey, yeah, whatever. Veterans are not judgmental people. Whatever the hell you want to do, just don't mess with me on it. Yeah, but I think that they told me that there's about 15,000 American veterans that live in Thailand full time.
I believe it.
So they have VFW posts, they have American Legions, they have like veterans bars, because Thailand is such a welcoming, low cost of living country. So things like that are really cool. You could even do like a Muay Thai visa, like you mentioned Muay Thai. You can go there and get a Muay Thai visa and train Muay Thai as long as you're going to a gym once a week or whatever. And you can stay there and train and go to the beach and, do whatever you want.
They take that stuff serious over there, man. That's a serious thing.
Yep. And Americans are so fat that it's nice to see the rest of the world. I was in Colombia and it was funny. I made a video. I was like, everybody here is so beautiful. If you're single, maybe your wife or your husband is here in Colombia.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe if I decide to do this, I should probably see if they got like a sumo wrestling visa. There you go.
You cover that. But there's like, there's Facebook groups for veterans living abroad. There's all this information out there where people can kind of make decisions on countries and things of that nature, depending on your budget, what kind of lifestyle you want. Me, I like beaches. So Dominican Republic makes sense for me to live here. But a lot of veterans like to live in the mountains, or they just want to get the hell out of the United States. So you can find my stuff on Instagram, TikTok, or on my website.
Awesome, man. Well, we're going to go ahead and call it. We'll go and throw the exit video. I will make sure that we get all of your links and everything when we upload this. If you don't mind staying once we end this, we'll get everything uploaded, man. Appreciate y'all for joining. We'll see y'all for the next episode, man. Y'all take care.